Hello, welcome back to our little world of marketing here. Today we are going to finish up talking about what we had started last time. Last time we had been looking at what marketing is in a pretty broad perspective. We started off by looking at the fact it's a support function, that it's trying to satisfy customer needs, and then we started looking at some of the activities marketing does to meet those customers' needs. Well, today we're going to go off on a little different tangent with that, and we're going to say, how did we get to this point? Why is marketing important? Why was it even invented, to use a kind of strange word? We're going to take a look at the evolution of marketing and what we call the marketing concept. So we're going to start with today is a bit of a history lesson. Now, I don't know if any of you are history buffs out there. If so, pardon any errors I make. I'm not very good with my history, but I think you'll understand what we're talking about. If we look back to when businesses really started inventing and using mass production techniques, we're probably looking at the late 1800s, early 1900s. And during that time period, companies really worked on how can we make more product? How can we produce more? How can we get more and more and more out there at a lower cost to us? That was their focus, and it was okay, because prior to this point in time, customers didn't have access to many things. You know, there weren't that many choices out there. There weren't those many products out there. So when they started producing a lot of product, customers were buying it up right and left. They're all excited for the first time they had access to tons of products. So from the company's mind thought, it's like, wait a minute, every product we make, they buy. So we need to produce more and more and more, so it'll sell more and more and more. They didn't have to worry about what the customer's perception of their product was, or what the customer needed or really wanted. It didn't matter. The customer was still going to buy the product. We call this time period the production era. And hopefully you can understand why it's called that. The emphasis was on producing, making more faster. But the management philosophy that was prevalent at that time is typified by this famous quote of Henry Ford's. He was talking about the Model T, and he said you can have it in any color so long as it's black. The thought here was, we're going to make a black car, and you are going to buy it. Why should we make it in a different color? If we produce it in a different color, we are going to have to change production runs. We're going to have stops and starts. We're going to have added cost. We'll probably have a slower production time because of that. Why? You're still going to buy it, even if you would prefer a different color. So there's no reason for us to do that. So I want you to think about this for a minute. If you have a company who's producing tons and tons of product, okay, it's going big, 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 and everyone's going out, 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 out. What's going to happen next? A competitor is going to show up over here. A competitor is going to show up and say, they will only make a black car? We're going to make a red car. And so they start producing another choice. This is where competition really came in. They start making a variation of that product. And now, for the first time, customers have a choice. Do I want to buy that black car over here, or do I want to buy the red car over here? Well, as you can imagine, a number of people chose that red car, or whatever other product we're talking about. So let's go back to the black car over here. What's happening in the meantime? Did they say, oh no, woe is me, other people are buying other cars, we're going to have to scale down our production, we're going to have to produce less? No, of course not. They continued producing large amounts of quantity. But they now have a whole new issue, and that's the issue of inventory, of overages. What do they do with this product that is now being stockpiled? Because they're not selling every one of them anymore, because customers are going to other places as well. So a whole new problem arose, and this gave birth to the era that we call the selling era. Okay? In the selling era, we had to change our perspective a bit. because we had been producing the product, we're continuing to produce it efficiently, but now we got to worry about moving that product, getting it out there. No longer is it selling itself. Okay. And something happened during this time period. We gave birth to the stereotypical ugly plaid sport-coated salesperson. And there's this image associated with many salespeople, that they're unethical, that they're deceptive, that they will lie, cheat, do anything they can to move that product, As you'll find out later in the course, that's not true for the vast majority of salespeople today. However, it was true back then. Okay, it did happen. And the reason was the company's focus was very short term. We've got this big inventory. Move it. Get it out of here. I don't care how you do it. If you have to intimidate people to buy that product, then that's what you do. Get it out. Move that product. Move, move, move. A very short-term perspective. Okay? And it does work in the short term, but not in the long term. You know, if you've ever bought anything from a high-pressured salesperson, you feel very uncomfortable about going back. Even if you bought the product, even if you liked it, because of that pressure, because of the way it made you feel, you don't go back. And the same thing happened here. That high-pressure sales is not appropriate in the workplace. So what could we do? What other approach is there? Well, someone had the bright idea, and I'm not using that term facetiously, they had the bright idea of, you know, instead of making a product and then trying to push it onto the customer, trying to make them buy it, why don't we ask them first what they want? And then we make that product for them. And that is where we started in the consumer era. Okay? We're looking at things from the consumer standpoint. What do they want? What would make them happy? Let's produce what they want. One concept of this that we're going to talk more about later on in another chapter is something called total quality management. Now, TQM, total quality management, is a production, I don't know if I want to call it theory or practice, that is very well accepted in today's workplace. And this is the idea, very briefly, that we want to constantly improve our quality. We're going to do this by seeing what customers want, by seeing what our best competitors are doing, and we're going to continually improve what we offer. Okay, well, the adoption of TQM is a big shift for most of their thought processes, because now they're saying our production is dependent upon the customer. Again, big mind shift. Okay, the new era, the era that we're really in today, sticks with that idea. Okay, sticks with the idea that we are still basing our product, our offerings on the consumer, and we are using what we call CRM, Customer Relationship Management. On a side note, if you haven't picked it up yet, marketing loves to use acronyms and abbreviations for everything. Okay, the idea of customer relationship management is what we referred to in the last lecture, that we want to treat the customer as a long-term perspective. We want to build that, recognizing that we want them for their lifetime. We want their referrals. We're not concerned with the short term. Okay? But also what we're adding in with this new era is we need to do that to society's benefit. Most of the time, it is very easy to do this. Okay, most of the time, you can behave in a way that's ethical, in a way that is helpful to society, but occasionally it's very difficult. And a lot of that depends on your industry. Some industries that have a built-in problem with keeping their customers happy in the long run versus keeping society happy are tobacco industry, alcohol industry, some drug manufacturers, gun manufacturers. Those are all industries where society as a whole may want one thing, but what their customers want is something totally different. So they have a hard time rectifying these two. Another example is McDonald's. Some of you may remember, if you're a little bit older, that McDonald's used to serve all their hamburgers and everything in styrofoam containers. That kept them very hot. Okay, well, as all of you know, styrofoam is bad for the environment. And so McDonald's switched over to paper. It was a socially beneficial move to make. Is it good for their customer? Well, it doesn't keep the product as hot, but McDonald's studies show that people usually buy their McDonald's hamburgers and wolf them down right away, so that wasn't a big problem for them. So in this case, they were able to satisfy both. Okay. One other component that's going on in the new era today is that of accountability. Accountability means we have to show that we are being responsible. We have to show that we're being fiscally responsible, managing our money properly, and also that we're being socially responsible. One area that shareholders look at us for in terms of measuring our fiscal responsibility is our return on investment, our ROI. Now that's a concept we're not really going to go into in this course. It's more of a financial analysis, but it's important to know we use it in marketing too. We're looking to see, is our investment worth what we're actually getting back? Okay, one other thought I want to make before we move on is I talked about these eras as if they happened in specific time periods, and a lot of them tended to do that. We'd have most industries in the different eras at the same time. However, you will experience people who think as if they're in the production era, and you will come across people who think like they're in the selling era, and etc. So when people have that frame of reference, when they think or act as if they're in a specific era, we say they have that orientation. So they have a production orientation or a selling orientation. So even though as a society, a business society, we are in the new era, you will find people with the various orientations. You will encounter them in the workplace. Okay, so let's move on here to the marketing concept. Hopefully you see where marketing came in. Marketing, again, the idea of focusing everything on the customer. So let's look at the definition of marketing, and this is in your textbook. Okay, the marketing concept is a management orientation that focuses on identifying and satisfying consumer needs to ensure the organization's long-term profitability. Okay, it's very similar to the marketing definition, the idea that we're focusing on the customer, trying to satisfy them. But again, I want to pull out some key components here. There's three. Okay, the first one, it's a management orientation. The key word there is management, not a marketing department. Okay, to illustrate the difference between these two. My father graduated from the Ohio State University back in the early 50s. He graduated with a marketing degree. At that time, the discipline of marketing was fairly new. A lot of companies had bought into the idea that we can see where this will be a benefit. We need to have this happen to us. He was hired by a company or corporation that is now a Fortune 500 corporation, and he was brought in the first person in marketing. His job was to set up a marketing department. And as you can imagine, he was very excited. He shows up to work his first day. Here he is in his mid-20s. His shoes are all polished in his little briefcase, and shows up there, and they point to an office and say, okay, there's your office. He's like, okay, great, great. Now go market. Well, he got pretty deflated very quickly for a while. The reason is what they actually wanted him to do was go sell. Even though companies understood the idea of marketing, it was hard to get them to change the way they thought. They were still having that selling orientation. For the marketing concept to work, the management's got to be in on it. The management has to have that orientation. Okay? Marketing cannot do its job by itself. It has to be integrated with all the other disciplines within the organization. Okay, the second of the points here is that we focus on consumer, or it could say customer needs. Hopefully by this point you're getting that idea. Every decision we make needs to be looked at from the company perspective. This sounds simple. It sounds easy. It is very, very difficult to do. We experience it here. And I'll be sitting with marketing faculty, people here in the business school, talking, working out schedules for classes and things like that. And we'll start saying, okay, we should offer this class here and this class here. Oh, wait a minute, I can't teach at that point, so let's move it here. And at some point, one of us has to say, wait a minute, back up, wait a minute. When do our students need it? Do we have a night class offered in it for the night students? Are they going to be able to take it and finish their program on time? And we've got to step back and look at it from their standpoint. That should be our first approach. But by human nature, it isn't. Human nature, we tend to focus on what we want to do and what we want to achieve. And many times this is why businesses fail, too. People start a new business saying, I'm good at this, I love this, I'd want to buy this product, I'm going to make it. Did they do any research? Do they know if the world out there wants to buy it? Many times the answer is no. Okay, the third point about the marketing concept is we need to focus on long-term profitability or another organizational goal if that's appropriate. So the whole organization is working together to satisfy the customer and achieve a profit. Okay, now I have up there that it could be another organizational goal as well. For example, if you were working for a not-for-profit organization, your goal would not be profitability. Your goal may be to reach a certain number of people or to start getting into a new area of services. Okay, it doesn't matter what the goal is, it's just that the most common goal is profitability. Okay, so again, total company, focusing on the customer, in order to achieve long-term profitability. Okay, so let's try and summarize the points we've made here today. Okay, marketing has evolved into the customer-focused discipline it is today. It has not always been that way. Okay? In fact, for most of history, it was quite the opposite. It was focused on business and what they wanted to do and what was easiest for them to provide. So this is, again, a different way of thinking, looking at it from the customer standpoint. Secondly, within the workplace, there is a variety of orientations, approaches towards achieving a successful business. This is what I was talking about earlier when I stated that people are going to have different thoughts and we need to be prepared for that. I worked for an organization. I went in with the marketing orientation, and my boss had a very much of a sales orientation. I was selling a product. We had excess inventory in this particular product, and he said, I want you to go to a certain customer of mine. I want you to go to them and convince them that they want this product. I said, I've talked to them about it. I've tried to demo it with them and everything. They just really don't want that product. However, they are interested in some other things. He says, great, follow up with those, but convince them they need that product. So they don't want it. Convince them, show them our study, show them how much people like it. Well, this is trying, again, to indicate to you that people in the world today, in the business world, are going to come from different orientations. And many times it's hard to talk to them because of that. You're talking apples to oranges. Okay, and the final point, for marketing to be effective, it takes a whole organization to work in an integrated fashion. If you are manufacturing a product, you should not manufacture that product until marketing has given you the information from the research. Till we've worked together on a design that the customer wants, for which there's a demand for. We need to work with the financing and accounting people to make sure that we're using funds effectively. Nobody spends money better than marketing people. We spend tons of money. But, as we talked about in the new era here, we are held accountable for that. So all that money we spend better go towards achieving our goals. Okay. I hope you have a great day. We'll see you next time.